Welcome to Perception of Truth. I'm your host, Renato. This podcast is about debatable topics on different perceptions of what people believe to be true. My goal is to make people wake up and smell the coffee, or if you prefer, to see both sides of the coin. So let's get to it. Today, we're going to be diving into the concept of living in a simulation and how that might be possible. First, let's define what we mean by simulation. A simulation is essentially a computer program that models or replicates the behavior of a real or fictional system. We see simulations all around us, from video games that simulate worlds and characters to weather models that help us predict the behavior of storms. Now, the idea that we might be living in a simulation has been around for a while, but it gained mainstream attention in the mid-2000s when philosopher Nick Bostrom wrote an influential paper titled, "Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?" In the paper, Bostrom argued that if advanced civilizations exist, they might have the technology to create detailed simulations of their own history, including the lives of individual people. Bostrom's argument goes like this. First, we know that it is possible to create realistic simulation as technology advances. The level of detail and realism in simulations will only improve. Second, it is possible that some advanced civilizations might have a strong desire to create such simulations, either for scientific or entertainment purposes. Finally, the number of simulated worlds could vastly outnumber the number of real worlds. Given these 3 points, Bostrom argues that it is more likely than not that we are living in a simulation, so how would we know if we are living in a simulation? There are a few different ways that scientists and philosophers have proposed we might be able to detect a simulation. One possibility is that the laws of physics might be different in a simulated world than in a real world. For example, in a simulated world, the laws of physics might not be as strict as predictable as they are in the real world. This could lead to strange behaviors or phenomena that we don't observe in the real world. Another possibility is that a simulated world might have imperfections or glitches that reveal its artificial nature. Those could be things like visual artifacts, strange occurrences, or inconsistencies in the way the world behaves. There are also theoretical ways that might be able to detect the simulations. For example, some scientists have suggested that the fine structure constant, the fundamental physical constant that determines the strength of the electromagnetic force, might be different in a simulated world than in a real world. If this were the case, it could be possible to measure the difference and potentially determine whether or not we are living in a simulated world. While the idea of living in a simulation is certainly interesting and thought-provoking, it's important to remember that it is still just a theory at this point. There is currently no concrete evidence to support the idea that we're living in a simulation, and it is not a widely accepted scientific theory. However, the idea of living in a simulation does raise some interesting questions and challenges some of our assumptions about the nature of reality. It forces us to consider the possibility that our world is not as real as we might think, and that our understanding of the universe might be limited by the constraints of a simulated environment. Regardless of whether or not we're living in a simulation, the idea highlights the importance of questioning our assumptions and being open to the possibility that there are things we don't yet understand about the world and the universe we live in. Thank you for listening to Perception of the Truth. join us next time as we continue to explore the mysteries of the human experience and the limits of our understanding.